And just the usual little heads up, this video kind of starts with the slow project, and then I kind of put in a bunch of little random things at the end, just so you know. Hello, what are we doing today? So I'm working on the episode. It's getting very, very close to done. I'm trying to get it sent off to the sound team really fast because it's probably going to take them a couple months to finish everything. At which point I can go back and over-obsess over updating a bunch of old shots. I'm just kind of trying to get everything locked. I think the last time you saw this shot, it was still just a bunch of blocks, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna tackle it. And I just started at the bottom and slowly went floor by floor and kind of working on this, and then the fact that this wasn't finished bugged me, so I'd go through and I'd update that. And I just kind of worked my way all the way to the top. It's mostly stuff I've talked about a million times before, but I'm doing a few new things, kind of getting everything to feel just a little bit like cloth. I'm trying to add more cloth to stuff. I think cloth and sci-fi, I want to combine those a little bit better. But one of the big ways of doing a big shot like this is just to, start somewhere, keep your focus small, make that the project, put it in there, and then move on to the next one. Eventually you stack enough of those things together and you have a whole scene. Like, these little people here, we were talking about how to make a big city scape a couple months ago, I think. So today, going back down here, all of these people here are all the same person. This guy, Mark, who I met when another friend brought him over, and Mark brought all of these different clothes that he'd made. He designs his own clothing, and so we scanned him in a bunch of different ways, and he had this big singing bowl that he put on his head, and I was like, you look like a weird cult or something. And so these are the Cymatic Temple, and they kind of worship universal vibrations. And so one thing I'm kind of doing is I have a lot of static people, but then I try to have one moving person to kind of sell it. And like, it's just, you try to get the balance right. It does feel a little bit like everybody's frozen. And so what I want on this floor is to have one big main guy kind of stirring the pot. But I got a photo scan of a different friend a couple days ago, and I thought today maybe we try to rig him playing the bowl. All right, so Blender, I'm going to import the photo scan that I already made previously. I've got a bunch of videos about photo scanning, but I should make a new one. Bowl man. And do you want to see something weird? If I go to material preview, Blender just crashes. I mean, it's my own fault. I'm using the experimental daily recent build, but all right. Import the bowl man. I can just go to rendered view, and that tends to work. And here I'll just turn up the world brightness. This is Luca from the Slice of Life films. If you've seen any of that, they're great. They do a lot of stuff with miniatures, and they're just about to publicly release, I think, their second film, which is very cool. So yeah, let's clean this up. You can see this is a bad scan. This is not particularly good. I tried to go really fast and loose because I knew also it was just going to be a really small background guy that I only use basically for this shot. But let's see if we can clean him up a little bit. Gonna tab into, whoa! Gonna select the vertices, select all linked, Control I to invert, X, delete those vertices. I'm gonna go into sculpt mode here and go to smooth, turn down the strength, and start to try to just smooth out some of these particularly egregious bits. When you smooth, things tend to get like a little bit smaller, and so oftentimes after I do that, like especially these legs here, I'll go and inflate it back up just a tad. Oh, Blender crashed again. Let's use the older version of Blender. 3.6, file, import, OBJ. And reinflate. Inflate the hands a little bit too. I'm actually surprised how bad this scan turned out. Like, I went fast and dirty, but it shouldn't have been. I should have gotten the sleeve detail. Okay, now I guess I'll save it. Bowl man, and now if I go to material preview, great, it doesn't crash. I'm gonna get rid of all of this stuff with a cube. I'm gonna line it up to where I want everything to be gone. Make sure the feet are separated. I might tab into edit mode, use proportional editing, because we can see a fold in the blanket here. I like having the blanket because it can help kind of bounce some of the light from above back up onto him and make it a flatter scan. But it's a bummer if it kind of overlaps with the shoes like that. But that should work. That should work okay. And I have the Bool Tool add-on enabled, so I can select this, shift-click on him, and hit Control, negative on the numpad, and that's just a little hotkey that'll eat everything away. I can apply that modifier to adds over here, and go back into here, Control I, delete all these extra little bits, and sure, delete some of this stuff too. I'll have him sitting on a barrel or something, but we can just stick a cube in here in the meantime that kind of matches up with the existing stool. First, let's make a little mallet here. It's kind of a felt mallet, and it's just enough. It puts enough friction on it to keep the bowl kind of ringing without you know, going too far in either direction. So let's make it like 20 vertices. This will be the little mallet part down here at the bottom. We can always change the dimensions of this later. Inset, extrude it all the way up here, and try to line it up with this other stick he has going. Cool, that works pretty good. I'm going to set up a really quick bowl here. Something that can just kind of be a placeholder that I can line up my photo scan with later. We'll select this to 0, bring it up, delete all of these guys. Okay, so what I want to do, I think, I want the mallet to actually control the animation. I just want to set up this cyclic kind of like spinning mallet, and his hands will just kind of trace where they need to be using inverse kinematics. So first, let's see if we can animate this. Well, no. I guess first let's rig it all up. So I am going to create a new rig. I'm going to put the first bone right here. So I'm going to select this ring and hit Shift S cursor to selected to put the 3D cursor there, so that when I hit Shift A and add an armature, it'll be centered right where we want it. Bring this down. So that bone will eventually represent the mallet. I also want him to have a little bit of sway. And you'll notice, like, when you're rocking on your chair, I'm not actually rocking around the point where my butt contacts the chair. I'm rotating around a point like a foot below that. And so I think we can do that here. Here I'm going to go into the data properties, viewport display, and check in front so we can always see what we're doing. I'm going to duplicate this bone just because it's handy. Set this up down here. And I'm going to use this as a starting point and just kind of set up where I think the bones should be. These will go out to the shoulders, elbows, and out to the hands. And these are both going to just extend right to over the top of the mallet here. And I want these hands to solve to their correct place on top of the mallet. And so I'm actually going to do that using an IK chain. This is going to be the source, is its position on the mallet, which means also we can kind of cheat things around. It's nice to have an intermediary kind of bone in between the mallet and the hands. So with this selected, I'm going to hit Shift S cursor to selection, and then Shift A to add a new bone. Let's bring the top down so it's a little bit smaller. And I'm going to duplicate this and just bring it up to right here too. And what's cool now is in pose mode, I can select this one, and if I shift click on this next bone and hit Shift I, that creates an IK chain. And you can see if I move this bone now, it propagates all the way through, and it's solving all the way down to the root butt bone here. And this is one of those situations where either you already know what I'm talking about and you're bored, or you don't and you're confused. So let me explain it a little bit better. Shift A, we're going to add an armature here. We can tab into edit mode, and if we hit E, we can extrude out a little chain of bones here. If we have another bone over here, we can set this up to control an IK chain in pose mode, which is where you apply constraints. It's just kind of weird because you think it might be an edit thing, but you add constraints in pose mode. And so we select this, shift click on this bone, so it's the active object, and if we hit Shift I, we can add our IK constraint, and you can see that automatically applies onto this chain right here. So now we can just puppeteer this. It animates the whole thing. I love it. We could go back into edit mode and extrude out like another chain here, add another bone, do the exact same thing. Let's go from here to here, Shift I, and it will do its best to kind of solve for everything. I love it. It's just a really flexible way to make a lot of different stuff work. And if we select this bone, you can see this dotted line goes all the way to the root, but under the constraint tab here, we can control the chain length, and if we turn this up, you can see the constraint only affects as far as the chain length goes. So we could have this one go all the way back to the root, but this one only affects these 3 bones right here. So they're great. I love IK chains, and you can also mix them with other constraints and do wild stuff. But yes, we can do the same right here. Select that, Shift I. So now wherever this goes, it's going to solve the whole skeleton to kind of get it from here to here. You can see there's a yellow dotted line that shows how far that constraint is going. So right now it's going 2 bones, 1, 2. but we could have it go like maybe just to the shoulders, so this will affect his arm but not his entire body. In this case, I kind of like having it go, here if we go to 0, it disables it, go all the way down to the root. I think that's going to give us a nice kind of organic feeling. And the other nice thing about having the root down here as opposed to right here is there's actually a little bit of give still in his hips. Like when he's leaning forward, his entire body is shifting forward. So let's do what we did with the arms, but with the legs now. I'm going to extrude, select this and extrude this out to his knees. Then go down to his feet and Shift S cursor selection, add our little bone here. And I might rotate it out so it's more accessible. Same with this, Shift S cursor selection, Shift A, rotate, and bring it in. And if you're wondering, why am I like using Shift S and adding a new bone instead of just extruding it out? It's because the control bone needs to be detached from everything else. And I could just do this and hit Alt P, like disconnect bone, and that's also a way you can do it. I don't know, you get to pick. So I'm going to select this, shift click on this, and then Shift I, add that IK chain, and right now it's going to be going all the way to the root, but I don't actually want that to happen. I just want the leg to be its own thing, so I might turn the chain length up to 2, so it just goes back to his hips here. Same right here. To active bone, turn this up to 2. So now, as we move these around, you can see he's kind of leaning forward a little bit, and it looks as if he's on like a soft cushion, and his legs will feel nice and natural too. I think that works great. So we're going to be parenting this with automatic weights, which attaches the mesh to whatever bone happens to be nearest, and that can be kind of tricky right now. Like you can see his chest from the way the clothes are hanging are actually closer to like his forearm here than they are to his spine, but they should probably be matching his spine more because that's what it's hanging off of. So I'm going to add some more bones, just literally for the automatic weights. Kind of a basic rib cage kind of deal here. And select these and then parent with Control P, parent and keep offset. I'm going to do the same with his face because the face is a fairly rigid thing. So I'm going to have one that goes down to his chin and his forehead, parent those to his head. And maybe one more just here kind of for his belly. And while we're at it, here, let's select these 2 control bones for his hands and parent them to the mallet. Control P, keep offset. Let's go into pose mode, Control S, save, and this is looking pretty good, except the head just feels a little bit too stiff on the spine there, because a lot of times our neck kind of stabilizes things out as we're moving around. It's not just like, fixed totally stiff. So I'm going to go into edit mode, select the head, and hit Alt P, clear parent, and so now if we go back into pose mode, there we go, the head doesn't care, but we can give it a constraint down here in the bone constraints tab and say copy the location of, first we have to select the armature, and then that lives us, and then the right bone, which I haven't been naming, so let's select this bone and hit F2 and call it neck. So now we can select this and say do the neck. And you get to pick, do you want the root or the tip of the bone? So we're going to slide this so it's the tail here. And now if we do this, the head always stays upright. I mean, we could always add a copy rotation constraint. You can also see you can affect the influence. So if we add a copy rotation and say, hey, copy the neck's rotation. And now it has the exact same orientation as the neck bone, but we actually want to we want to be able to add our own. So let's change it from replace to add. And I only want the influence to be down pretty small. So we do this, and then we bring it back up to where it originally was. I think the only thing left, I want the feet to stay static on the ground. So I'm going to add one more bone here that isn't even going to do anything. This is just for the automatic weights so that it's not trying to attach itself to the leg, which might be moving a little bit. So here we go. And now, hopefully, we can select the mesh, shift-click on the armature, Control-P, and parent with automatic weights, and it'll attach all the mesh to the closest bone, but it doesn't. And the thing to do is undo and hit S100, scale it up 100 times, and just try it again. Control P, parent with automatic weights, and for some reason the algorithm's a lot happier if everything is 100 times larger. Then at the end you select the skeleton and hit S.01, scale it back down. And cool, here, let's select the mallet here. I'm going to turn off the overlays. And if I rotate it around, Hey, that's what we wanted. And let's attach the mallet to this bone too. So select it, shift click on the armature, go into pose mode. We're gonna select our bone and hit Control P, parent to bone. And now hopefully, yes, there we go, the mallet moves with everything too. So this works great. He can stir this pot, but what we want is the specific motion of you're kind of dragging the mallet around the circle. You're not just spinning it, you're kind of, it's this slightly more complicated motion. And to get that, let's see, what do we want to do? I'm going to select the bowl and hit Shift S cursor to selected so I can create an empty that's just a circle right in the middle. And here I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and scale it down so it kind of fits inside the bowl. And this will control the motion of everything, I think. I'm going to create another little empty here. We'll just do a sphere and line it up right on the side of that circle like that. And I'm going to parent it to that circle. And that'll be our point of reference for where the mallet is. This is the bit I'm making up as I go along, because there's some confusing things. Because if we just rotate the mallet, it'll be spinning 360 degrees. And obviously, you can't do that with your hands. So we're going to have to figure out some way to separate those motions a little bit. So we're just making it up. Graph editor, I'm going to select this here. Hit I, insert a rotation keyframe. We're going to find the right axis. My guess is it's the Z-axis, and if we turn off these two, we can select just that, and yeah, that looks like it. So I can duplicate this keyframe, and whoa, that's going very slow. Oh, because it's only going 2 degrees. Here, we'll make it go like more like 300 degrees. And if we hit A to select everything, and Shift E, extrude linear extrapolation, spins nice and perfectly like that. So that's our motion, and I think we can just select the mallet here, and under the bone constraints, we can say copy location of, oh, and here, let's name this to be F2, control orb. Yes, so now we go back into here and say target the control orb. And that works pretty good. It's very vertical. It's kind of cool though. It kind of looks it's very deliberate. But let's see if we can still get just a little bit of that kind of dragging offset motion. And I'm hoping we can do that with just a damped track. So here we have our control orb. I'm going to duplicate that and put it just slightly ahead of where the base is at. And if we go back into our mallet bone here and say damped track control orb 01. Ooh, okay, that works pretty good. And we can scale this down a little bit to keep the mallet actually inside the rim of the bowl. And I might actually move this so it's not quite as far ahead. It's just dragging behind just slightly. And he'll just do that. He'll do that forever. Sweet, let's work on our mallet a little bit. I'm going to select this ring and this ring. Control B to bevel, just kind of make it look like a felted kind of pad. Right click, shade, auto smooth. And we're never going to see this, so I don't even really need to do anything. I might just give it a new material. And I made an old trim sheet, which is just a collection of a lot of different materials that I like to use sometimes. Let's make the base color. Just use the whole trim sheet. Image texture, open. Yeah, just old like samurai doodads and stuff. And you can see right now the mapping is all kind of weird, and I want to do just a cylindrical unwrap, but you can only do that if everything is like square to your view, and this is at an angle because of all the constraints. So I'm going to hit Alt D to duplicate it, Alt P to clear the transformation, Alt R to cancel out the rotation. Now I can tab into edit mode, select everything, and hit U, cylinder projection, and hopefully that is... If I scale this up like that, sure, that's not horrible. That looks like it could be a very fancy baton deal. Here, and I'll also just turn down the specular and save. And while we're here, I want to try something, because I just noticed if you move this, it kind of has a good rowing motion. And I think if we move this target bone up like this, we could actually, oh, and here, let's clear this parent. We'll just keep this kind of static up here. We could rotate this and maybe just get like a looping rowing animation too. Here, we can bring his feet bone stuff back in. We can rotate that. Let's see. Oh, it's still going that way because it's keyframed that way, of course. But here, I think if we just parent it to a little sphere here, Parent it like that. Control P. Rotate. Rotate 180 degrees. There, now he's rowing, and we can actually control like the scale and everything of the path. Ooh, yeah, we could dial in the target direction. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that works. That works pretty darn good. Just had to kind of dial in where this was placed, and the size of the circle, but that could definitely be useful in the future. So, all right, let's put our guy into our scene. I'm gonna select everything and hit Control C to copy. Got my other scene right here. Control V to paste. Gonna grab all of this here, and hopefully I kind of already made him at the same scale. Oh, though it looks like we might be able to scale him with no issues either. Let's set him up where we want him. Does that scale feel about right? I think he feels... these guys might all be different scales too. This guy in the back feels a little bit small, but we're also in a very wide field of view. I changed the field of view, and I'm working in small rooms just so I can see more, because by default it's like, this is your field of view, and I just, yeah, want to be able to see more. Okay, so let's stick him right here. Shrink our bowl down to match the path of the mallet. Delete our temporary bowl. And here, let's copy the materials of his mallet here too. See how that looks. If it looks like a fancy stool, or if it just looks stupid. Oh, it looks fine. And from the camera's view, yeah, I think that'll work great. I don't think we have to worry about adding hair or anything. He's going to be too small and blurry. I think he might be a little bit too large, and so I might select all this stuff again and shrink him down just a tad, but just a tiny little bit here. And cool! Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's basically what I was picturing. I was thinking maybe we could give him like a crazy hat or something like that, but I think they wear the bowls on their head, so this is just, he has a particularly large bowl. He's the guest of honor. Let me do a quick render. And he looks pretty good. The motion, I think, definitely sells it, and it means they don't all feel too static. I do think his silhouette, because like it is just a little bit too smooth, I might go through and just parent some stuff to him, or his head, maybe I could add some hair or something like that. Actually, here's an old picture of Scott. Let's open it up with Photoshop. Gonna crop it out, and then we're gonna use the select tools. Use the negative selection tool to get rid of the sky right here. It's working pretty good. If we use the refine brush tool, we can kind of get this fuzzy in between. Yeah. Just really get that hair feeling. Nice. I'm gonna output to new layer. Crop it again and save it as an alpha channel PNG, and we probably only need, we can have it be pretty small. Yeah, I've actually been meaning to do this for years. I should make a whole little collection. Like, it's just 2D, but for background people, like when you look at the video, the hair is where it falls apart. That's where you really get that kind of blobby feeling. And so having something in there, I think we get some more of it up here. Having something in there that actually feels like proper hair. Let's see how it looks. So F3 images as planes. Let's get our Scott going. And we can tuck in some of this bottom stuff like that. In fact, let's open up the shader editor, and on the alpha channel, let's change the gamma a little bit. Just to kind of show off the feathering a tad. Is that doing anything? Yeah, I think so. It might be too subtle to see from a distance, but no, that works. That works great. Yeah. Let's parent it to this bone here. Control P, parent to bone, and I might stick it a couple other places too. Here, let's Alt D, clear that parent. And this person up here, I actually already have sort of a hair simulation thing going. Here, let's copy the location to snap that up here. But that's a lot of hair, and again, you can't even see it. You can't even see it at all in the thing. So maybe this will work better if I delete the original hair and just use a little Scott tuft right here. And frankly, I thought it'd actually have a bigger impact. It's pretty subtle, but I think there's times where it could be useful, because I do use these photo scans quite a bit, and just that hair blob, I'm starting to hate it. And just while we have momentum, I like this room, but I think this floor feels a little bit too empty. So let's make kind of a weird design that can kind of go on the floor, and he's playing in the middle of it. I'm just going to do that in a new instance of Blender. We'll close Photoshop so it's not eating all of the RAM. Let's create a camera, Alt-R to make it look straight down, change it to orthographic, and the dimensions to like 600 by 600. If we go into that camera view, let's create a... So what's the best way to do this? I think I'm going to create a cylinder with 12 sides. Is 12 too many? And all I really want is a circle, I guess. So I'm going to delete the top thing here. I'm going to connect these with J, and then another one cutting straight through here with J, which gives me just this great 1 pi wedge. I'm going to invert everything and delete it. And I should know this, but I don't, so 360 divided by 12 is 30 degrees. I love that you can just use any little input and just do math in it. So if I hit Alt-D, R30, that'll rotate, which means R60, and Alt-D, R120, and... Great. Okay, now everything we do to one, since they're all instances, will happen to everything else too. So I can select this. Oh, here, let's select these, subdivide, connect these with J, and I want to make kind of a star deal. But I want it to be on an axis. So I'm going to select everything and hit R, whoa, but not the camera, and hit RZ15, because that's half of 30. So now this is straight up and down, so I can just pull it out like that. Yeah, that could work. That could work okay. First, I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to duplicate it and hit M, just put it in a backup, because I can imagine wanting to use these triangles for something in a second. But now we can play with these ones. I'm going to select this. Let's inset. Can delete this face and has that. Yeah, that kind of looks like a good compass rose type design. Maybe that's all we really need to do. I'm gonna select this one, hit F3, make single user object and data. So now we can just control this without affecting everything else. And I'm gonna take all of these other ones that aren't the cardinal directions and say link object data. And we're not on an axis, but I can just eyeball it. Or maybe it'd be cool if we kind of, pull it in a little more even. Let's create a circle. Curve, go up to the top, circle, there we go. We'll scale it and create some text. And I have to come up with a fake religious. Every time I've ever tried to make up a fake religion, it turns out the religion is already real. We've made up a lot of religions. Vibration boys. I don't know, that's their slogan. They love those vibrations. And we'll go into constraints. Go to follow path. I'm still to this day confused sometimes about like, should we do a curve deformation or follow path constraint or like whatever. But in this case, yeah, I think it's definitely deform, follow curve, and we select our curve here. We can scale it down. Alt D. Let's change the font. And here we'll stick a hyphen at the beginning and the end. When in doubt, translate random stuff to Latin. No one's going to be able to see this anyways. Good vibes only. So we'll get that in there too. And we'll make this smaller. Through the shared heart of our vibrations, the universe is one. Yeah. And because we're having a good time, let's create another 12-sided cylinder here. And I'm going to delete the top and the bottom. And what am I doing? What's the best way to do this? Here, I'm going to delete these two. Right-click, subdivide. And then I guess I have to select all of these by hand because I can't think of a better way to do it. I can select, check or deselect. Great, and it gives you options for the pattern and all. It's great. Scale these up, select everything, and hit extrude, fatten it out, then give it some depth. Select everything and hit Shift N to recalculate the normals, just in case. And I wonder if I can do the bool tool to multiple objects at once. Probably not. So I might have to do this by hand. Or wait, I can select all of these and select this one and say Control-C copy modifiers because I've got the advanced copy add-on activated. Huh, I thought it would look kind of cool, and it doesn't really. Kind of just looks weird, but we did it, so I'm keeping it. Go under film transparent, so it'll have an alpha channel. Gonna turn it down from the default 4000 because that's crazy, and we don't need to denoise either. Hit render. Great. Alt S. Save it as an 8-bit. We'll call this the star logo. F3 images as planes. Here's our star logo. Rotate it 90 degrees, so it's probably upside down. So RX 180. Great. Put it under the bowl. We're going to get it nice and big and move it up just the tiniest little bit so it's not perfectly intersecting the floor. And whenever you do this, there's always like a little bit of a drop shadow. But if we go under object visibility, and we can uncheck diffuse and glossy and shadow, and we still see a little bit of the fringing from the alpha channel, but I think the shadow's off, and that's okay because we're not actually even going to be using the color. We're going to keep it, I want it something kind of gold, so we'll turn up the metallic. And that's looking okay, but maybe it's a bit much. Here, let's load in some picture of grunge here, and we're going to multiply that with the alpha channel. But I think I might have to invert it. Let's be doing much. Let's use a color ramp and just try brightening it up a little bit. I feel like I should be doing something. Here, let's look at this. And then we invert it. Aha! We went the wrong way. Okay, so we go that way. And that works a little bit better. And let's do one more, but with the roughness. Control-T, drag this into the roughness here. And maybe just this random asphalt. We'll see. That's cool. Here, let's bring it through a color ramp. I want to be able to see the silhouette a little bit more. So I think if we make it less glossy, it'll normalize a bit. Oh yeah, and it's still a little bright. Might darken it a tad. I don't want it to be like that blaring. I want it to feel like something that was maybe installed and was really cool like 15 years before. So yeah, okay, I buy this as a space. Or maybe I'll try a different grunge map. Yeah, I like that better. And since we made an asset, let's overuse it up here on the balcony. Cool, and since we already have one of these candle bowls set up, it kind of, I don't know, implies it's a little auxiliary kind of chill zone. Yeah. And I think this final composition kind of needs like a little green thing, like one of those apothecary signs, something green. There's no green, but yeah, after working on this shot for weeks, I think we might be done. I do want to improve this person here. This is Selena. She's feeling a little bit lifeless, or maybe just too intense. I gave her some cool hair and glasses, but it didn't help. But yeah, all right, now I'm just fooling around. Although I did go ahead and decide to replace her with these two guys playing tap block. This is Luca and Julian, and it turned out pretty good. I've got these little blocks here going up through a glowing plane. And that in turn is either allowing it to shine or not shine on these squares, so they can go through and tap things, and the lights will turn off and on and all of that, which I thought was as opposed to trying to animate all the lights themselves, it's easier to animate cubes, and I think it turned out pretty darn good. I finally did my my high quality render. I'm able to render each frame at about like 40 frames per second at 3K. There's a few places where I might kind of add, you know, some higher quality renders just because I could see a little bit of denoising. But yeah, these guys, I think they add a lot right there. You can kind of look at them and be like, oh, I can see they're playing a game. Yeah, I'm happy with this shot. I still think I might want to do a breakdown, and if there's anything specifically you'd want to see a breakdown for, let me know. Wow, okay, well, her hair is quite large, but I think I like it. Yeah, we also filmed a bunch of stuff yesterday, the very last few shots we needed for the episode, which I'm excited about. Right now I'm trying to see if I can figure out a nice way of compositing stuff out here so it interacts with all the reflections and all of this. Like, it seems like it shouldn't be that hard. It seems like we should be able to pull luma keys and things like that and use glossy and direct passes, but I'm having a hard time getting it all work in the viewport. Anyways, We'll see. We'll see. Like if I turn off glossy for the world settings, no, that doesn't make any sense. But then I could like, is glossy? No, no, no. Well, thanks for hanging out. I've got a couple more of these videos floating around that I'll try to upload the next few days. I hope you are thriving. All right, talk soon.